For generations, California symbolized everything that was fantastic, was great about America. It was the most beautiful place in the world, snow-capped mountains, pristine beaches, lush inland valleys. But it was more than a vacation spot. California supported the biggest middle class in the country. It had an education system, the envy of the world. It had gleaming infrastructure. California was a state that made the American dream a reality. Now, the state of California is known for a very different set of images: needles and feces in the street, a dying middle class, the country's highest poverty rate, policies that prioritize illegal aliens over ailing American citizens. California is still a symbol, but today it's a symbol of everything that has gone wrong with this country. Trace Gallagher joins us tonight with the latest from the once golden state. Trace?
And Tucker, for Governor Gavin Newsom, California is humming along nicely, apparently, and he now says the Republican Party is heading into the waste bin of history. Quoting here, America in 2019 is California in the 1990s. The xenophobia, the nativism, the fear of the other, scapegoating, talking down or past people, the hysteria. And so we're not going to put up with that. We're going to push back. Newsom ended by saying, quote, "What we're doing is working. I think Democrats are winning right now." Apparently somebody forgot to remind the governor that 40% of his state's population lives near poverty, and that having among the highest taxes in the country and cost of living isn't exactly giving them a leg up. And there's this. July 1st, California drivers will pay 6 more cents a gallon for gas taxes. That's on top of the 12 cents last year and on top of already having the highest gas prices in the country. Doesn't appear drivers are winning. Also on July 1st, California begins background checks on customers buying bullets. The cost, $1 for every purchase. The check is meant to quickly return information on restrictions like a felony conviction. And non-California residents can no longer buy ammunition here, period. Finally, a study by homeless advocates say people on Skid Row have less access to bathrooms than Syrian refugees, a problem which is vividly apparent to everyone in LA and San Francisco. But putting in more mobile bathrooms just in Los Angeles would cost $57 million a year. In other words, it's not going to happen. Got to believe the homeless don't feel like they're winning either. Tucker.
What a disaster. Trace Gallagher, thanks a lot for that. Yep. Well, California wages war on its own middle class and tries to build men's rooms that cost as much as houses. The governor doesn't see a problem with the state, as you just heard. Tens of thousands of middle-class families have fled and are continuing to flee every year. Meanwhile, Gavin Newsom travels to Central America, telling his citizens his priority is helping people there. As the state disintegrates, Newsom says Donald Trump's version of the Republican Party is what's headed into the waste bin of history. Maybe so, but California is going to get there a lot earlier. Victor Davis Hanson is a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution. He's also a lifelong multi-generational Californian. He just wrote a column describing his state as America's first third world state. Professor Hanson joins us tonight. Professor, thanks very much for coming on. In what sense is California a third world state?
Well, it has all the symptoms of what we associate with failed states. It's got the highest basket of income tax, gasoline taxes, sales tax, and yet its schools are rated in the last 10%, the bottom 10% of the nation's test scores. 1/3 of the nation's welfare recipients live in California. 1/5 of the population, as you said, is below the poverty line. 1/5 of all the homeless people in the United States live in California. We have a medieval society, Tucker, of a very tiny but very affluent elite. We have the most billionaires of any state in the nation, and then we have the largest underclass. And part of that, Governor Newsom's got it exactly wrong. 25 years ago, when we had Prop 187 that cut off health care, but not emergency health care, to undocumented immigrants, that passed by 59% of the population. It fueled Pete Wilson's come up from behind victory over Kathleen Brown. It was very popular, but 3 days later, a federal court invalidated it, and that got rid of the deterrent factor, and people wanted to come to California, often illegally, and they resided here illegally. And that was unfortunately part of a perfect storm where at the same time 4 to 6 million people over the next 25 years said, if I'm going to pay the highest basket of taxes and get the worst roads, infrastructure, public schools, and among the highest crime rates. San Francisco, by the way, has the highest property per capita crime rate of major cities in the United States. Then I might as well go where there's no income taxes, like Nevada or Florida. And the third wind in that perfect storm was it came at the same time in the late 90s, middle 90s of the growth of Silicon Valley. So eventually over the next quarter century, Google, Facebook, Apple would be capitalized at about $3 trillion. We created a very small but influential, wealthy, manorial class that was not subject to the ramifications of their own ideology. By that I mean when Jerry Brown retired, he didn't live here in Fresno. He went to Grass Valley with his pensions. Dianne Feinstein didn't put her kids, her daughter, in the public schools. She lives in Pacific Heights, not Redwood City. Nancy Pelosi rails about education, but none of her grandchildren were in the San Francisco public schools. So we've created a very wealthy class that doesn't mind high taxes because it has ways to navigate around that and poor social services. And the people in between are sort of like peasants outside of a medieval keep that can't survive, and so they drift off. And we were left with a sort of a romanticized indigent class, and then a royal elite that doesn't really care about the vanishing middle class at all.
From the outside, Professor, this doesn't look like a sustainable system at all. It looks like it's teetering. Do the people running it sense that, or do they think they can continue forever?
Well, they all have one thing in common. I mean, if we look at Gavin Newsom or Dianne Feinstein or former Senator Boxer or Nancy Pelosi or Mark Zuckerberg or the architects of this system, they're all multi-millionaires, in some cases multi-billionaires. And so they have a sort of a psychological penance. They feel good about being virtuous in the abstract. But meanwhile, on the ground level, I mean, we're sort of like Constantinople under Justinian, the 6th century AD. We've seen the return of things like typhus, infections near the City Hall of Los Angeles. We've seen epidemics of hepatitis A. We've got 140,000 people that are living on the streets in California. And we just built a high-speed rail system that we canceled, and now we're going to, out of shame or, I guess, pride, we're going to try to build Merced to Bakersfield, a high-speed rail to nowhere, where the three main laterals, Tucker, the 99, I-5, and 101, have never achieved their intended result of 6 lanes. So it's sort of like Road Warrior in the pre-modern world, where we dream of a postmodern high-speed rail system that'll never be built.
There is, it is a lot like Road Warrior. Funny you said that. Professor, thank you very much for that,
Thank
sad
you. It's a
but
tragic
incisive update.
Yeah, it's tragic.
It is tragic.
Thank you.